This is one of the biggest changes in the game they can make overall to just get more people into the game regularly. A lot of folks would just don't want to play because they know they're going to lose their stuff. Long-term persistence is a huge downside, I think, to the current state of the game. It's an amazing tech, and I think it's really cool for the game. I'm looking forward to seeing how we can play around with it. But they know it's a big problem. And so they talk about that here, and they talk about their current solutions that they're working on to get to that. I'm going to let you guys listen to that for a little bit.
Work your butt off. There are people who get together with members of their org to work towards earning a Polaris from Wicklow. And if they manage to put all their stuff on the elevator and the elevator doesn't eat it, they then get their Polaris, they then get their Atlas, ICTY, they then get their F8C, whatnot, and they have it. And then we release a patch, which we used to do every 3 or 4 months, and now we've been doing every month. So as an unfortunate side effect of our change in our philosophy, we exasperated this problem, and now it's a gamble. It's a crapshoot. Every time we release a patch, it's just who gets to keep it, who gets to lose it. Bing, 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 bing.
Yeah, that sucks.
What the heck is happening? What is happening, and what the hell are we doing about it?
All right, cool. LTP, right, is the famous system we're talking about.
The worst named thing in the...
Yo, I just realized, watch this scene, and you can see somebody up here in the top left-hand corner, literally coming out of their balcony door. Could you imagine being in a place where there's like potentially thousands of people watching a broadcast going on, and you're visible on it in the background? Just, dude, I go out on my balcony in a robe and nothing else. Danger. That's how you see them toes.
LTP, right, is the famous system we're talking about.
The worst named thing in the world. No, sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
Well, let's
go
a bit into what LTP actually does, right? Because there's some misconception around it, and also a bit of misconception to the amount of effort you actually put on it. But so historically, if we go back to the 3.x era, I guess, I think it's in the 3.x era.
Yeah.
We developed the first LTP system, right? Which came a bit as a side request, right? Which was, we patched 4 times a year. It was a bit like, oh, there's some stuff players want to be able to persist. Cross patch. We're still in development, so it's okay. We're wiping all the time, and we want to wipe because blah, blah, blah. There's other considerations. So
this is the interesting problem they deal with, in my opinion, is like, clearly they want to go as fast as possible and develop in a traditional way, but also they're trying to run this game live and advertising to people that they can come play the game, so they do need to make sure that things like persistence matter. But as far as actually making the game work, it's not that important, I think.
Let's build something. So we built a very small,
not at least at early stages,
system initially to persist stuff. And the way that worked is that the game server would basically submit these commands to say, this guy picked up a gun, this guy dropped a gun, this guy has this. And so that was a solution that kind of worked at the scale of a single server kind of system. And we had a lot less items at the time. That solution was in no way scalable, right? But it kind of did work better overall than the current one, to be honest. Now, come PES 3.18, come 4.0 dynamic server meshing. Now we persist everything else, right? So we need to kind of change how we deal with long-term persistence. And so let me describe a bit how this works currently. So when you acquire a ship from, let's say, the web platform, right? That ownership record lives on the web platform. It's in there, right? And every time you log into the game, we check, oh, this guy is this.
For context, Benoit and the team at Turbulent actually spent a lot of time building up much of the web platform. So you see them doing also a lot of work helping with the back end of the game now. They've got a little bit more of that institutional knowledge of how that website even works with that stuff. So I am glad that of all the people who would talk about this subject being brought into the game, it is him.
Does he have that ship in the game? In his entitlements, right?
It's called an entitlement. That's an important term.
That's your entitlements, right?
That's your entitlement.
Processing entitlement.
So the entitlement records. I know people are going to make the joke of, oh yeah, we're all entitled. Yeah. So the entitlement.
I wasn't going to make that joke. I respect these people.
I'm preempting you. So we make sure you have an entitlement record. When you actually open up your ASOP terminal, right, and you view your list of ships, what you're actually viewing is your list of entitlements, right? These are not your ships. These are actually your entitlement records. Attached to your entitlement records is the insurance document that goes with it, which describe the loadout of the ship. We call this an entity class loadout, which describes what is in each port, right? And if there's no entity class loadout or insurance document with it, then it's the default loadout. So that is your entitlement records. That's what you see in ASOP. Then we also query for, is there an entity for this entitlement record at the moment, right? And that will look at the game database in this current moment. Let's call it the inventory database for now, right? So we cross-link the two. So for each row in your ASOP terminal, you'll see your entitlement record. You'll see the state of the entitlement record will allow you to see if you need to deliver it first. That means I have no entity in the game. So when you deliver it, now we create the entity in the game. And then if it's stowed in an inventory, then you can retrieve it, right? It starts from the entitlement record. And then if the ship is stowed, then you'll see its location is set, right? If it's left in space at a location, you'll see its location is set. If it's lost or destroyed, or I think there's a couple of different states, but one of them is destroyed, then you can claim the ship, right? And then that will use the insurance document to destroy whatever matches this entitlement. So we have a way to find entities that were created from a given entitlement, gets destroyed, and then we use the insurance document to give you a brand new ship, right, at the location where you're at. And so that's in-game. That's what you have in-game. That's the way the in-game part works, right? So let's do a clear example. I'm in New Babbage. I have a hawk in my list, and I deliver it. It gets created at that location. I retrieve it. It gets unstowed onto the pad. I use it around, blah, blah, blah. I fly out to another place. I lose the ship. I respawn in Fletcher. I do my time.
He says he loses the ship, but we all know he crashed into the moon's surface.
Then I go out to Grimex or whatever I respawn at. And now I'm at a different location. I see the hawk in my entitlement list, but the ship is nowhere to be found. I claim it. A new ship is created. It's put in there.
Yep.
Okay.
So before we go to the ones you get in game, which is just to reiterate this so everybody understands this before we move on to the next thing. Because people are always wondering, why do I always get the stuff I pay money for? Real money for, but the stuff that I earn in games is different. That's what we're in the process of explaining right now.
Yes.
Because the stuff that you
feel like they'd have some significant legal repercussions if that ended up being a regular thing.
Get that you pay actual money for, or that you get awarded through like a subscription or a gift, like we gave the armor to a concierge a couple months ago and stuff like this. Those sit on the web platform. Every time you log into the game goes, hey, what am I entitled to? The platform says, these are the things you're entitled to, and it gives you back. That's why, remember the character reset back in the day and whatnot? That's all it did. It just refreshed those entitlements, and that's why you got those things back.
So essentially, every single update we would get refreshed back to that state before they got the long-term persistence in.
That system is not simple. Benoit what Benoit described there was not simple in the least, but it's a pretty hefty system. It works. We know it works. It's why you are never in any risk of losing the things that you pledged for, and it's why sometimes certain items like the Race for Stanton stuff, trigger a thing that gives you a web platform entitlement, and those go into your My Hangar, and you see them in your My Hangar, and that's why you get those, and you have that. That stuff is, for the most part, it's very stable. It's very stable. You can always rely on getting that stuff back. That's not how the in-game stuff works.
Correct.
Benoit.
So we went through the web platform stuff and how ASOP works, right? Let's go into, now I go to New Deal and I buy a ship with UEC, right? That will actually give you an entitlement, right? Because you can claim those ships, right? You can transfer those ships. So now, at that point, up to now, these will work identically, right? But when you log into the game, we don't reconcile from an outside source your list of purchased in-game ships. They are just entitlements in your account, right? And that's it. We keep them. Okay. let's stay on ships for now, right? Before we get
Yeah,
to items.
let's stick with
right?
ships.
Now, the thing that's important to know here is that the actual ship you're playing with, the amount of possible states for that ship are almost infinite, right? You could leave the ship in space. You could leave it in your friend's hangar. For some reason, people are able to do that. You can stow it in inventory. Like it can be inside an Idris that's stowed in someone else's thing. All kinds of stuff can happen. And so that there's multiple paths to update that specific state of that ship. Whereas your entitlement, once you have it, you have it. That's why your ASOP terminal always has it. Now, let's talk about how LTP works now. Now, this is within a game patch. When we release a new patch, inventory database, entitlement database, they're gone, right? We start from scratch. And now we're rebuilt. So you reconnect, you come in, your web purchases are being reconciled. We create new entitlements for them. And then when you get in game, you create new ships and then you play with those ships and everything works.
Because you lost your components and stuff, right? I see you in chat. Lost your components is 4.3.1.
What is LTP? LTP is when you acquire things in game and you have ships that you own, right? The way LTP was designed, and maybe this is the part that, there's a mistake there, right? But still, I'll explain how it works. When you stow something in an inventory that you own, the systems will create what we call LTP records. These LTP records basically say they're close to what an entitlement is, right? But they say Jared owns a Hawk, right? And those are stored in another database, right? That is outside the game environment and lives cross patches, right? And so now when we wipe the entitlement database and we wipe the game database and we start fresh from a new patch, when we reconcile your account the first time, we're going to give you your web purchaser for sure, and we're going to give you back your LTP records. And so that will create those entitlements. That's the intent. Now, the problem is, right?
He keeps asking me right, and I'm not sure if I'm supposed to agree yet.
We need to make sure that we always stow the stuff back into inventories that we own properly and that those records actually save properly, right? And it turns out that there's a million goddamn
they don't.
ways in which stuff gets stowed in this game. And so...
Okay, see, that's super key. These kinds of statements, Benoit made this kind of statement multiple times during this show.
Ways in which stuff gets stowed in this.
Let's listen to it again.
And that those records actually save properly, right? And it turns out that there's a million goddamn ways in which stuff gets stowed in this game. And so, for example...
This is tech debt, dude. He talks about tech debt so much throughout this episode, but he puts a face to it that I think isn't as obvious unless you have a spreadsheet of all the things they've done throughout the years. But to acknowledge that they have created a lot of different ways for this game to work at the time that they were at, in 3.x, you didn't have to worry too much about being able to trade things with an NPC because there weren't that many NPCs. But now in 4.x, you do have to think about that with Wicklow and stuff. So they could have made a system that worked in 3.x but doesn't work in 4.x because those things just weren't there. And there are a lot of examples of this. I can't pull them off the top of my head, but LTP is just one of them. Inventory is another one. Some stuff with the mission system, the cargo system, quantum travel. It's all based off of mechanics that worked for the time that we had and not necessarily the overall scaled up game. And it seems like a lot of what he was saying was their goal right now in making the game more playable is clearing out a lot of that tech debt and trying to get in systems that are properly scaled for the game they're building on top of server meshing. I'm not going to say whether that's right or wrong, but I think it's worth acknowledging that the way this game has been developed has led to a lot of systems that are not properly made for the game they want to make. And it's good on them to finally start to chip away at that.
Claiming a ship by insurance, then you get the ship, it gets stowed from another path. And in that path, the LTP wasn't correct. We've had cases where we tried to fix bugs related to the F7C turrets, for example, that got disconnected, that were a default loadout item that we didn't want to wipe when you claim insurance on it. And that messed up the LTP records for it. And so this whole thing basically is very fragile. And so what we realize now is that the list of LTP records and the way we update them is not always a slam dunk. In fact, there are a bunch of cases where the record's not updated right. But we even had a case in 4.2.0 very recently where we realized 2 days after launching the patch that the way the recording was going for the ships, there was an issue where instead of giving you, I'm going to take your Wicklow Polaris as my example, just to make it super egregious. Your Wicklow Polaris that you stowed in your inventory by going at your hangar and storing it back in would actually persist as one of its components in LTP. So you would get like a cooler instead of the ship, like you'd get. And so that was obviously a very big issue. And we ran corrective programs to solve that. And so that's why, if you notice in 4.2.1, you didn't have much reports of people losing ships in 4.2.1. But now we're back at 4.3.0 and we've had reports of lost ships between patches. And so we're pretty certain at this point that we know that there's still cases where the LTP records are incorrect, either through certain game flows. There's also, unfortunately, a lot of signal to noise ratio issues, like people claiming they've lost ships. We investigate their accounts; they never had those ships. Yeah. We get a lot of that, right? And so at this point, we have to be.
Yeah, CIG. I can't seem to find the bangle I earned in game. Could you just load that into my entitlements and ignore everything else that follows?
I want to jump in here to make sure that this doesn't get lost in some of the stuff I'm checking. So there's two issues. We need to step back and explain how the checkout and the stow works, because that's causing some confusion. We'll do that in a second. But this bug where first bug is things aren't getting stowed right. And so and so when it comes time to entitle at the beginning of a new patch cycle, you don't get the thing. Sometimes it's not getting stowed at all. Sometimes it's getting stowed and being logged as a component part or something else, and that's why it's like, oh, I'm supposed to have a ship. I don't have my ship, but I have this cooler instead. I don't think I own this cooler and whatnot. We were on a call, you and I, until it was like 4:00 in the morning. My time, when we were investigating this and just giving you examples, and we were trying to figure out what's going. The man was literally inside the raw LTP database. We were checking individual items, like talking to backers on Twitter and Discord, and like, okay, when did you do this and what did you do this? Like working down at the most granular level in the middle of the night, trying to figure this out back in, I can't even remember what patch it was, to figure out that they were being stored as other items.
Yeah.
And so that you can write the SKU to fix that stuff. But all of this happens because of something that we haven't explained before, and that's the checkout and stow system. So talk to me about, and talk to me, be candid, it's okay, about how the checkout and stow on this LTP system works. And I'm gonna preface you people. I'm gonna preface this with something. We've admitted to.
What do you mean, you people?
A lot of peculiarities in the course of this show. Now we're about 2.5 hours in. We've been very candid. We've been very forthright. We've admitted to. Benoit said the words, "Can't trust Dev with this," or whatnot. It's like this. A lot of things are being said in jest and whatnot. What I can't control what you take away from this conversation that we've had. My hope would be a recognition that we're human and that we're constantly trying and growing and striving to do better. If you choose to take other stuff from that, I can't do much to help that. But explain the checkout and stow system, because that's what's going to.
All right. So this is getting pretty long. I don't want to go into another diatribe of kind of the problems, but the gist of this, to me, is LTP is just another system that, like he said, he literally said it in the beginning of this video. They brought it in because people wanted there to be some level of persistence, right? You wanted to be able to earn something and bring it to the next update. Not crazy. Okay, I think most of us love that. You guys are all smart people. You want to play smart things. That means keeping your progress. This is just how it is. And they also recognize that as a group that is literally trying to fund a game off of objects that don't necessarily work correctly, they need to have something for people to do. Even if the ships don't have engineering, you don't have your full reputation system or your mission givers or inventories, like you don't have all the stuff you need for a full game. At the very least, you can provide a well-functioning tech demo, which is kind of what 3.x was. Well-functioning is up to your interpretation. What I mean by that is basically just offering you a chance to try the game out without a black screen. You would get some black screens. Let's just say tech demo. Okay, they needed to provide a tech demo that had some level of progression, so they built something that worked for the time. I think this goes directly to the star map, which up until last year we had a very basic version that was built for a game that focused around Port Olisar, included a backdrop that was Crusader, not even a real planet, and a few space stations. It didn't include multiple points of interest. It didn't include a bunch of planets. It didn't include a whole star system. There weren't that many locations, so you could tell it was like a temporary system. There wasn't search. You couldn't place markers. You couldn't really see your path that well. It didn't tell you how much fuel you were going to use. That was a tech debt feature that they didn't want to bother, but they wanted to keep in just to keep the game functioning. And we've always looked at this point of like 4.x or whatever, them getting to server meshing and finally being able to be like, okay, we've reached server meshing. We've got the back end starting to actually form. Now we can build the systems to work on the proper game we're building. And that's what we're seeing here. They're talking about it when it comes to fixing up things like inventory or quantum travel or the transit system, interdictions getting an update, all that kind of stuff. They've reached that plateau where they want to work on it. And everybody's opinion is 100% valid. Maybe you don't like that. Maybe you think they should have built the final systems back then. Maybe you don't think they should be taking care of this stuff just yet. But I think they see this as a plateau and opportunity to try and limit some of this stuff, especially as the CTO of the company. He's probably the most concerned with this kind of thing. But they see the chance to try and chisel away a little bit at this over this year of playability. And I think this is part of that push for playability. I don't think they're going to finish it all this year, but it's all part of maintenance, hygiene, the janitorial work, clearing out the old stuff that's not working all that well. And for that reason, I think that the long-term persistence, getting some level of fixing and reliability is one of the biggest things that they could do for this game. This is huge. It's not huge because they're not making any announcements here, but the act of doing this is pretty huge. And I hope that we get more updates on this soon, because I think this is one of those things that stops a lot of people from playing. It's stuff like this falling through your ship and like not having places to spend your money reliably is like, they're just core pillars of unplayability in the game. Losing your progress is pretty ridiculous. And even though they've said they don't want to do any more wipes, if people are still occasionally losing some stuff here and then upon updates, then that idea that this is a game with a permanence to it is never going to proliferate. Nobody's ever going to find out about it. People who are hearing about this game for the first time are still going to be seeing feedback that, oh, you've lost some stuff 3 months after getting it. This isn't really a game. This isn't something I want to get involved in. I'll wait for that. So getting this fixed, I think, is a really big part of them pushing a game, pushing an experience at least, that seems approachable and that can live alongside Squadron 42, even if it's not at 1.0 yet. So that's my look into this long-term persistence and stuff. I'm going to end that right here, but there is more during this talk if you want to go over it and hear all the things they talk about. We'll be covering this next week in full, because I think there's a lot of little bits of info here, little nuggets that are useful. They might not be game-changing, but they're definitely useful bits to have.